Good morning.
Hello, is this Lex Luger?
Speaking.
Hello, Lex. This is Dustin Wilmus from Minnesota. How you doing?
Great, Dustin. How you doing today, buddy?
I am excellent, and I'm here with my co-host, Ton.
Hey there, how you doing?
Did you say tons?
Ton, like 2,000 pounds.
Well, hello, Tons. How are you this morning, my friend?
I'm doing good. Love your little ringback tone there.
Oh, yeah, man. I've tried to change that a bunch of times, and all my friends and family, by popular demand, I have to bring it back.
That was awesome. So yeah, if you're ready, we'll go ahead and get started here.
I'm ready.
Well, we kind of want to start out and see if you can talk to us a bit about your early days in training. You trained with Hiro Matsuda, right?
Yes, in the torture chamber.
Yeah.
The garment factory with no windows and no air conditioning down in hot Florida sun, Tampa. Man, that was something else, guys.
That's where the real men trained back in the day.
Oh, my goodness. He'd find out whether you really wanted to wrestle or not. He took you through he'd take you out in the late afternoon sun of them. It was the hottest, most humid with the air hung heavy for about a 4 or 5 mile run just to warm up. And then he'd take you inside and do push-ups and these Hindu squats and jump Hindu squats. He'd take you through this calisthenics, this really super strenuous, highly demanding calisthenics routine for about an hour and a half to 2 hours. So it was just puddles of sweat all over the floor. And he'd do everything with you. He'd do it, then you'd do it. He'd do a set, then you'd do a set. Nonstop for like an hour and a half to 2 hours. Oh, my goodness. I still have nightmares.
Wow.
He wouldn't take you anywhere near the ring till you met a certain qualification within those parameters of his garment factory torture chamber. Then he'd take you to an equally hot building with a tin roof and down there in the heat and humidity of Florida in the summer with a tin roof with a ring inside of it. No air conditioning. Jeez. Oh, my goodness.
I guess that separated the ones from the guys that were kind of just in it for the glory then, huh?
You're not kidding, my friend. Oh, my goodness. You had to really want to do it, else you wouldn't stick it out. He was a wonderful, he broke in Hogan and Mr. Wonderful and never had a formal school. He just did it because he loved wrestling and what it done for him and his family, and liked to see guys he thought had potential get a chance at it. What incredible guy to mentor me when I first started out. Very, very fortunate. Great guy. Outstanding family man. Just everything you want for somebody to break you into something like that.
Well, then it seems like when you started out early down there in Florida, you were in some pretty big matches with, guys like Wahoo McDaniel and Ric Flair and the Great Muta.
Oh, yeah. Matsuda managed for the first time ever. He walked into the ring the first couple months.
Oh, okay. Awesome.
I mean, that was incredible. He never did that. I think it was because he's afraid I was going to mess up, so he wanted to be ringside to cover up if I messed up. I was so inexperienced at the time. But whatever his reasoning was, rest his soul, he's not here to verify. It was, I had him ringside as manager, and I got to wrestle Wahoo McDaniels for the Southern Heavyweight title, which was the big deal belt down there in Florida Championship Wrestling, about, 2 months in. And Wahoo McDaniels, Hiro Matsuda told me this, said, how am I going to wrestle this guy? He doesn't know how to put one foot in front of the other in the ring. How am I going to wrestle him for the Southern Heavyweight Championship? Wahoo was an incredible athlete, NFL player, scratch golfer, used to play with Lee Trevino. If Wahoo couldn't work with somebody, nobody could. Matsuda looked him in the eye and said, if you're a good worker in the ring, you could have a good match with a broomstick. So he challenged Wahoo to go out there and have a match with me, because if he's as good as he thinks he is, a good athlete, he can cover up for my inadequacies and he can have a good match with a broomstick if he had to.
Wow.
I don't know if I like the broomstick reference, but that's what Matsuda Wahoo. So, and to answer your question, I got to work with, I look back at my career, every top guy who was renowned for their abilities in the ring, from him to Ric Flair to Bret Hart to, man, you name it. I wrestled with all the top guys. Incredible 15-year career.
Now, since you wrestled some really huge guys early on like that, was there any, do you remember any kind of like animosity with other wrestlers because of it, or?
Well, not to my face. Everybody was real nice. But I didn't really sense it. I didn't know really that. I never got involved in the political side of wrestling. back then, which I'm glad I didn't. At the time, I was kind of oblivious to it. I was so enamored with myself. I never really got involved in the politics. I thought I was so wonderful and had such a great physique that they had to use me no matter what. So that was kind of my mindset back then. I was, to put it nicely, very confident. I didn't worry too much what other people thought, or people said, he said, that she said, that you are. I didn't get involved in much of that throughout my career.
Right.
I was kind of in like in my own little world when it came to that.
Well, after you left Florida, and you went to work for Jim Crockett there in the NWA, and you were a member of the Four Horsemen, which was huge back then. What are some of your memories of that? And eventually you had a big feud with them after you left the group. What was that?
Yeah, what a incredible. Talk about starting out with Wahoo McDaniels and then go from there to the Four Horsemen. I mean, the whole first 3-4 years of my career to be around, be mentored and tutored and work with and against Arn Anderson, Tully Blanchard, JJ, and Ric Flair. Couldn't ask for a better early part of your career than I had no idea how big they really were. I hadn't really followed wrestling before I got into it, and everybody goes, "Man, you're going to be one of the Horsemen?" Everybody's like flipping out. I go, "Is that a big deal?"
Wow.
Well, yeah, that's a huge deal. And I mean, looking back at it now, I realize, wow, like you just said, what an incredible opportunity.
Yeah.
Went from Matsuda and Wahoo to Dusty and Rick and Four Horsemen and my early years in that NWA, which became WCW, and just got to work with all those guys, and they oversaw and really mentored and tutored me. It was incredible.
Now, you were pretty successful with, as you mentioned, NWA, WCW, eventually winning the heavyweight championship and everything. But what was your reasoning for then leaving? You ended up leaving for the WWF, right?
I did. You know how we always have that we never win, but it's a comparison game. I wanted to see what it was like there. They were at the time the number one company. I wanted to be the best of the best, I thought at the time. So I always had my eyes on the WWF, which is now WWE, which is all one now. But yeah, I had my eyes on. I was looking longingly at going to and working with Vince. I'd met him, and we had a good relationship as kind of as friends. And I thought, man, it would be great to go work with Vince in WWF. So I was definitely looking for eventually going to work for them, and I had the opportunity. When the opportunity came up, I jumped at it.
Yeah, and you were supposed to be in the bodybuilding promotion, but eventually wound up with Bobby Heenan. You did the narcissist angle, and
right. The bodybuilding was a stepping stone.
Yeah.
Segue, because I couldn't wrestle for a year when I left WCW. I agreed not to wrestle for the remainder of 1 year, which I had left in my contract. So the bodybuilding thing was strictly a segue/stepping stone into my WWF debut with Bobby the Brain. Now you talk about breaking in on top of there, too, with Bobby the Brain. I got to work with Bret Hart right away. My first house show was against the world champion, Bret Hart, for the world title in Calgary or Winnipeg.
Wow.
So to go from one promotion to work in a world title match with their champion, with Bobby the Brain as your manager, talk about a magic carpet ride. My goodness. Led a 15-year charmed career on the wrestling side of things, for sure.
Yeah. Now, when you switched over, was it kind of like night and day, WWF, compared to working at WCW?
No, I mean, the crowds were a little bigger, and obviously, but the wrestling was pretty much the same. I didn't know, there was no big noticeable. It was a little more organized, obviously. Vince is incredible with the way he organizes things in his marketing department. So I did notice the differences there, obviously. It was definitely a step up in that regard.
Okay.
I mean, WCW was, I enjoyed working at WCW. It was a good company.
Yeah. Well, I know one of the things that's always talked about is, when you were in your first run there and you were the All-American gimmick and kind of like took over Hogan's spot in a sense, but you were never given the title. What was the reasoning behind that?
Well, I was never given a reasoning. I never knew I was trying to be the next Hulk Hogan. I was just told that Vince called me his office. I'm going to turn you for the narcissist into the do the All-American Lex Express thing. I thought he's out of his mind, but man, it was a very successful summertime promotion, and it was explained to me that they wanted to do that to promote the SummerSlam. And he never told me, I'm looking for you to be the next Hulk Hogan and I'm going to put a world title on you. I was never promised that, never told that. As a matter of fact, I knew I wasn't going to win the world title at SummerSlam because I knew that Yokozuna was going to work with Undertaker after SummerSlam. And the only hint of a title run Vince ever dangled at me with WWE when I was there was possibly if we did do a title with you, I would like to be special and be at WrestleMania 10 at the Madison Square Garden. I did end up wrestling with a three-way, Yoko, Brett, and myself for a shot at the world title at the Garden, WrestleMania 10. But I was never promised that nor told I was supposed to be the next Hulk Hogan. So I never felt that kind of pressure, thank goodness.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I was just doing what I was told to do. I was trying to be a good foot soldier.
Well, I mean, you still were pretty successful there. I mean, you said you had the big feud with Bret Hart and did the Lex Express, won the Royal Rumble. So, I mean, definitely
oh my goodness,
left your mark.
Great.
Yeah.
Other than not winning the world title, I got to work with every top guy the whole time I was there. It was a great run while I was there. I always was main event. Just got to work with Davey Boy as a tag partner. Always was featured and a great light on their television. It was I enjoyed working there. It was great.
Well, of course, eventually you left, and we're from Minnesota, so obviously we remember when you walked out at the Mall of America for the first Nitro for WCW. Can you tell us a little bit about how that went down and sort of your memories of those Monday Night Wars?
Yeah, well, I explained it in the book in detail, but I actually had a casual conversation with Sting, one of my best all-time buddies to this day. He was with WCW. He told me they were coming out with a Monday night show, and in casual conversation, it came up that I wasn't under a contract officially with Vince McMahon. I was trying to re-sign with Vince. He wanted me to re-sign. I wanted to re-sign, but I was at free agent. He goes, you tell me you're wrestling right now for WWF and you're not under contract. I go, no. I go, we plan on signing a new contract long-term, but we haven't worked it out yet. So he talked to Eric Bischoff, and Eric Bischoff wasn't real high on me or bringing me in, but he saw an opportunity to kind of make me a surprise entry. They went all the way with it. They had a towel under my head. I actually signed my WCW contract the day of the show there on Monday at a hotel across town. They flew me, and I did a house show Sunday in Halifax, I think it was, for Vince. They flew me to Minneapolis. I signed a contract with WCW that morning when I arrived. And I was on their TV that night. They hit me out even at the mall. They didn't walk me out to what they called the gorilla position. Right before I went out there and got nose to nose with Hogan, even all the other guys didn't know I was there. It wanted to be a total surprise, which it was for everybody. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely. I remember watching it when it came on, and it was definitely a trip because nobody knew that you weren't, still with WWF at the time. So it definitely worked for sure.
Yeah. Even the WCW guys that were there that night, well, what's he doing out there? It was a good one. They pulled it off, no doubt. Hard to keep a secret in wrestling.
Yeah, definitely, especially nowadays.
Yeah, Hogan, Eric Bischoff, myself, and Sting were the only ones I was going to walk out there that night.
Well, and as the Monday Night Wars went on, I mean, obviously you were a big part of that, the feud with the NWO and eventually being in the Wolfpack and whatever, but did you kind of foresee that company was going under there towards the end? Or, I mean, what was the atmosphere like?
I did. I explained in my book. I knew back in 97, right after the Olympics, we were getting ready to inaugurate Turner Field, which was the Olympic Stadium for track and field, for the new Braves field here. I went to this huge, gigantic AOL, like Time Warner, get-together with all their biggest advertisers, and they were going over like their big picture. All the guys from the top floors of the CNN Center were there, and they were going over their plan for TNT and TBS for like the next 10, 20 years. Long range, inside, behind the scenes planning. And I was there like as a conversation piece to like mingle and sign autographs because we were the number one rated show at the time. But guess what? They didn't mention in any of the long range planning at all for that entire hour-and-a-half event. One time did they mention it, even though I was there.
No Nitro, huh?
Nothing about wrestling or Nitro. I came back home. This is 97. I said to my wife, Peggy, Peg, I go, first chance they get, I go, if ratings ever drop substantially for any kind of period of time, I go, they don't want wrestling here. I go, we are not in their long-range programming. Didn't fit where they wanted to go with their networks. They kept us because we were getting really good ratings at the time, but I knew, and I could feel it in my gut. So sure enough, in 2001, when ratings went down for a while, they unloaded it. But I enjoyed that magic carpet ride while it lasted.
Yeah, and I suppose you were able to kind of prepare yourself for that too. It wasn't a big shock then.
Well, I didn't, but the ride, the magic carpet ride, continued through the late '90s and the Monday Night Wars. It was a magical time to be in wrestling for sure.
Yeah.
Record ratings, packed arenas. It was fabulous. It was a blast.
One thing we wanted to ask you, you documented your relationship with the Miss Elizabeth in your book, and we were just kind of wondering, what your relationship was, with Randy Savage, either, working in the ring or backstage. Was there any weirdness towards the two of you, or was everything okay at that point?
No, I'm asked that a lot. I go into depth. One of the reasons for writing the book wasn't just to talk about wrestling. I delved into everything in my personal life, all my family shortcomings, et cetera. Reason for that is that definitely the book ends with telling people the good parts of my life, but definitely I shared my failings and shortcomings, regrets as well. It's kind of for young people how not to do it.
Sure.
And I behind the scenes wrestling was always great. I go into depth in a lot of my personal bad decisions and shortcomings that I had. And but Randy, in regards to the second part of your question, Randy and I always had a great relationship. We traveled together in WWE when I was there, together, him and I, worked out together, always had a great relationship. Randy had long since been divorced from Elizabeth. He'd even brought all kinds of women with him as new, like, valets to television. So there was no animosity. And I pretty much kept my relationship for obviously various reasons, very low-key. For most of the time up until 2001. So,
okay.
Randy and I had a very good relationship both in and out of the ring. Even after you found out about Elizabeth and I, there was never any hard feelings there whatsoever. Their relationship was long over with.
Yeah.
That's good. Now, we've talked a lot here. There's tons of names, tons of guys you've had huge matches with, lots of wrestlers. Is there anyone that's like a particular favorite or anything that sticks out to you over your career?
A group. I'd say Ric Flair definitely. I had hundreds of matches with him. He's not just a big star, one of the biggest stars ever. He was a star maker, me being one of them. He's the best at that. He had a double gift with that. Not only was he a huge star, but he was a star maker. Bret Hart, him and I always had a great chemistry both in and out of the ring. Sting, of course. Steiner Brothers. Always had a special relationship with them. Had a great relationship with Hogan, which I explain in the book. Yokozuna and I had a very great relationship in and out of the ring. Those are the guys that come to mind first and foremost. Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, Shawn Michaels. I'm not going on and on.
Yeah. Well, on that same hand, then, is there anyone that you weren't able to work with that you wish you would have been?
I pretty much didn't have a guy in the business I didn't work with at the time. The Rock and Cena were just getting started up when I was with WCW, so we weren't going to be able to work together then. So there really wasn't. I worked with Undertaker. He was fabulous. There wasn't a guy in my era, really, you could name that I didn't get to work with.
Yeah. Well, then again, that definitely says something about your career for sure.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
looking back now, sometimes you don't appreciate it as much at the time, but looking back now, I go, wow, I got to work with every significant Macho Man. I got to work with every one of them guys. That's a big wow, guys.
Definitely.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah, very cool.
Now, the business has changed, a lot over the years. It's almost like a completely different thing now. What are your thoughts on WWE and wrestling today?
Oh, man, I go to the Hall of Fame usually every year, and they invite me to come to that. And WrestleMania just gets bigger and bigger. I really noticed the production quality, just the staging and the camera work and the things they do now. Wrestling pretty much is wrestling. They do more high-flying stuff, which was already a big part of what we were doing now. But, what I notice is the production quality and the behind-the-scenes stuff gets bigger and bigger. When I see the staging at WrestleMania, it's like you got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just globally immense now. I noticed when I go to WrestleMania, I'm at the hotel in the morning with the guys having brunch after the Hall of Fame the next morning. You got fans come asking you for autographs from Spain, from Pakistan, from South America. I mean, people come from all over the globe to go to that event. It's just gotten bigger and bigger. The wrestling remains pretty much the same. People complain that it's not like the old school wrestling, but the guys don't get to do the long-term Ric Flair versus Sting type stuff for a year like we used to, because the business now is so month-to-month pay-per-view driven that they go through these things much quicker, these storylines. Right. They have to make their advertisers happy and keep things flowing. So that it had to evolve and change some that way, which some of the fans miss, because I used to work with Flair for like almost 2 years straight back then. So I think that's some of the things that old school wrestling people miss, but it's just the evolution of wrestling, in my opinion.
Well, and you mentioned, going to WrestleMania, and obviously you must have patched things up with Vince McMahon since the 90s there.
Yeah, we have a great relationship now, and he, even at my worst moments, he would check up on me and see how I was doing. Vince does a lot of stuff behind the scenes with guys, including guys who are struggling, that never makes the headlines, that he doesn't do, that no one knows about. So there's no union, no this or that, but he does a lot of good stuff for guys and their families behind the scenes that people never see or hear about. We have a good relationship now, definitely. That's
good. It's kind of unfortunate that he's sort of painted as a villain in the press, but, as you said...
Well, he wants to be the billionaire bad guy, like kind of Donald Trump, and controversial, and that makes him money. he leaves it that way. In real life, he's not really that way, but his persona even is that way. Yeah, that's money for him.
Right.
Bad guy billionaire.
Well, I guess that's the way you got to do it then. So do we see Lex Luger in the Hall of Fame at any time then? Is that coming up?
I don't know. It'd be a real honor if there's so many great guys in there. If I ever got in there, it'd be a real honor. But if I don't, I don't,
Yeah, I guess we'll just have to wait and see then, huh?
Yeah, definitely. Never know.
Can you tell us a little bit? We mentioned it before, your new book, Wrestling with the Devil, that's out now, and what was it like working on the book? I mean, obviously it seems kind of like therapeutic, but the book's out now. Can we get it at bookstores, or where do we get this?
Yeah, you can get it anywhere. Amazon, your Barnes & Nobles, wherever books are sold. And it turned out great. I was never going to do a book. Everybody, all my mentors, everybody's like, you should write a story. Your story's so crazy. And I said, no, I was one of those guys that used to struggle with a 2-page essay in high school. So how am I going to write a book? So I thought I'd never do a book, but a writer friend of mine, John Hollis, here in Atlanta, helped me write it. And a guy named G.J. Snell, who works with Tony Dungy, helped him with all his books, encouraged me, introduced me to Tyndale Publishing, who did the book. We did all of Tony Dungy's, the Super Bowl coaches' books, and it just, everything fell into place, and they did Tyndale and John Hollis, they just did a phenomenal job on telling my story and telling on my transformation from where I was at in my personal life to basically being the next wrestler that everybody thought was going to be found dead in a hotel room to just a non-religious atheist science kind of guy to there's a supernatural transformation in the story, which I go into detail in the book, which I'm so thankful the way they laid it down at the end of the book and let people know where I'm at with my life now in so many good ways. They did a spectacular job on it, guys. I'm very pleased with how the book turned out.
Yeah, it definitely seems like everything worked out well for you, and we're happy to hear that.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate that.
Yeah, and it seemed, Ton and I were talking before we went on the air with you that until you get it on paper, you don't really realize, all the stuff that you were, kind of responsible for or in the midst of, and it's pretty crazy once you lay it all out like that. So the book is definitely a good read.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, guys.
It's been an honor talking with you today. Is there anything you want to leave us with?
I just appreciate you guys having me on, guys. Have a fabulous day. Thank you.
All right, Lex. Thanks a lot.
Hey, guys. Thank you so much for having me on. You guys did a great job in the interview. I appreciate you guys, man. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Have a great one.
All right, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.